everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic.com, back again with another exciting edition of AEW Dynamite Graded. Very eventful episode of Dynamite last night. Not only, of course, was it 30 years of Chris Jericho, but we also had that massive dog collar match between Cody and Brody Lee. So lots to talk about. But how good was Dynamite? Well, there's only one way to find out, and that is by assigning each individual segment a lovely individual grade. That's right, it's time for AEW Dynamite Graded. We start off by seeing that not only on commentary do we have JR, Tony and Excalibur, but also Taz and Ricky Starks. And JR gets Starks' name so wrong that at first I can't tell if he's joking or not. Thankfully, a lot of Americans on Twitter were explaining that he said Ricky Skaggs, and I was like, Ricky Skaggs? Still no idea. So Google informs me that Ricky Skaggs is a bit of a famous bluegrass and country musician. I still don't know. I mean, I'm English. I feel like a bit of a fool now, sorry Jim. Anyway, the reason that Taz and Ricky Starks are on commentary is to support their boy Brian Cage, who is defending the FTW Championship against Will Hobbs. And that's the opening match, and that's right now. They go back and forth, they do a good job of making Hobbs look like a threat. Cage is taken aback at first by the strength of his opponent, but then Cage uses his surprising, freakish agility to work his way back into the match. At one stage, Hobbs goes for the double underhooks. It looks like he's attempting a pedigree. I'm like, really? But we'll never know what move it was unless he does it successfully in future, because instead Cage powers out and Hobbs just settles for a sit-out powerbomb and gets a near fall. Cage then gets a near fall as well off his big F5 kind of move, but yeah, Hobbs kicks out and he's really hanging in there. Cage goes behind Hobbs and hits a German suplex, but Hobbs just bounces back to his feet and no-sells it. It's G1 season, baby, and Brian Cage agrees because he no-sells a German soon after that. Hobbs then gets his nice spine buster, but it's only a near fall. Hobbs cannot believe it. He decides to take a risk now because he's got no other options left. He heads up to the top rope, goes for a frog splash. Cage rolls out the way. Hobbs misses horribly, and Cage hits the drill claw and picks up the expected win, but I'm glad they made Hobbs look strong still. Ricky Starks leaves commentary and heads down to the ring, and him and Cage are cornering Will Hobbs, and then Taz gets on the mic and says, right, look Will, I'm going to give you a choice right now because I'm very impressed with you. You can either join Team Taz right now or we'll beat you down. And before Hobbs can answer, Darby Allin's music hits, and here he comes down to the ring. I want to say racing down to the ring, but that would be a big lie. He just kind of saunters down with his skateboard. It's the most Kevin Nash Darby Allin run-in I've ever seen. He just gets in the ring, he's lazily got his skateboard, and these two blokes just go, right, we've had enough of this, and they leave. And they run from Darby Allin, which I don't think they've done before. It was a weird ending to the segment. This gets a B grade. I enjoyed the match, but the post-match segment kind of robbed it a little bit for me. I think it would have achieved a higher grade were it not for that. The reason there is because I don't think Darby versus Team Taz has to go on any longer, really. And I criticised WWE for extending feuds way beyond, their natural sell-by date. So I've got to do it for AEW as well. It's only right. Also, the running was a bit weird. Why did they run away from him when it's 2-on-1? And also, why was he so lazy about the run-in? It was just it looked like the wrestlers themselves were sick of this feud continuing. So if that's the vibe they're giving off, what are we supposed to think? We now have our first batch of celebrity video messages for Chris Jericho's 30th anniversary in wrestling. And they're pretty big celebrities as well. We've got Slash from Guns N' Roses, we've got Dennis Miller, we've got Jericho's own dad, we've got Bully Ray, but the one that caused the biggest furore online was Hiroshi Tanahashi. Now, for those of you unfamiliar with New Japan, Tanahashi's like the John Cena of New Japan, basically. He's a huge name over there. He's a very good wrestler. He's getting on a bit now, but he's still very capable inside the ring. And it was a bit of a shock to see him crop up on Dynamite, even in just video form, because it seems like AEW and New Japan have had a bit of a strained relationship. Lots of speculation now that New Japan is changing management, with Harold May heading out the door, means that maybe the two promotions can foster a closer bond going forward. It's very interesting times. Next up, we get FTR's 20-minute brush with greatness. We saw them beat SCU recently. We saw them turn down a challenge from the Best Friends because they're just comedy backyard wrestlers and they don't live up to the prestige that FTR like to see in their challenges. This week, they're facing Jack Evans and Angelico, the Hybrid 2. They're alive. The reason I say that is because Well, we saw Angelico on Dynamite recently, but mainly the pair, especially as a tag team, have only really been confined to AEW Dark. We do learn on commentary that apparently they are on a 3-match winning streak though, so that's presumably why they've got the shot here. And while FTR make their entrance, we cut backstage and the Young Bucks are watching the screen angrily and sideways because they're wrestlers. Jack Evans comes out hot, he's kind of running wild a little bit. It starts off a little bit sloppy, but he gets the job done in the end. A little bit like my presenting career. And because he's run so wild on FTR, I'm not a fan of this, to be honest. They head straight away to the timekeeper's table, grab their title belts, and go, we've had enough, we're off, see you later, guys. And I'm like, no, come on, that doesn't fit their characters. They want to prove they're the best, even if they do have to cheat in the end to get there. But not in the first minute of a match. You don't just walk out then, it's FTR. Anyway, as they're walking out, Angelico leaps off the apron and in like a crossbody, they catch him though, and then Jack Evans leaps off the top rope and knocks them all over, and the match is still underway. Later on, Evans goes up top and comes off with, I'm not really sure what, it looks a bit like a botch, but they do play it off as his leg might be hurting him, and they had been working over his leg all the way throughout the match, so at least if it was a botch, it kind of makes sense in context. But part of the reason I think it was a botch though is because straight afterwards he goes straight back up and hits a moonsault, and there wasn't enough time between the spots for it to be two distinct things, I don't think. I think he may have panicked, but I don't know, I could be totally wrong. From there, FTR isolate Jack Evans, they knock Angelico out of the ring, and they pin Evans with the superplex and splash combination. And backstage, obviously, the Young Bucks are not happy to see this. They're like, God damn, this is the level of cheese. God damn, these guys are pretty good. And then they super kick the cameraman because they've been super kicking everybody and getting fined for it in the past few weeks. And that continues now. Are there any babyface teams left in the tag division? We've got FTR who are heels, the Young Bucks who now very much seem like heels. Even Angelico and Jack Evans, even though they were the babyfaces in this match, they're still heels, right? Everyone's a heel. But actually no, not every tag team in the division are heels, because we get that classic babyface trope hitting the Tron, a comedy Photoshop job. That's right, a pair of hot dogs appear on the Tron and it's got, you know, FTR's faces cunningly superimposed over the top of the hot dogs. And then the best friends come out and say, look, do you get it? Because you're weenies, and Orange Cassidy called you weenies last week. They've also got t-shirts with the same image on, so really hammer that point home. I love babyface banter. But Chuck Taylor gets serious and says, look, what's not a joke is the fact that we are #1 contenders. And we just passed Tony Khan in the back, and he said that our title shot against you is next week on the 1-year anniversary show. FTR don't like that, of course. They have a little bit of a brawl, then they bail and take Tully away with them, and that's the match set for next week. This gets a B- grade for me. I wanted to enjoy the match more than I did, but there were some sloppy moments here and there, and then the aftermath of the match as well, I again wanted to enjoy more than I did, but the Photoshop gags never really worked for me. This was very WWE at its laziest, but coming from AEW. So the match was decent, and I liked the booking of Best Friends versus FTR, but there were too many things wrong overall with this segment for it to get any grade higher than a B-, unfortunately. More messages for Jericho now from MJF, Shaquille O'Neal, Gene Simmons from Kiss, Don Callis from Impact, Lars Ulrich, everybody's 4th favourite Metallica member, maybe 3rd, and Diamond Dallas Page as well. And now we get very much the centerpiece of the show, and the match we've all been waiting for as well, the TNT title match between the champion Brody Lee and Cody, the challenger, and former champion of course, under the stipulation of a dog collar match. And the entrances are big, the ring announcements are big, it all feels like a big fight. I mean, Cody's out with Brandy and On, and he's got his 5 intros to his entrance music. Brody is out with Anna Jay and John Silver, and it's all feeling very intense. And then a big surprise, just out of the blue totally, we get a quite cool little cameo because it's shown in the crowd that Greg Valentine is there, one half of course of probably the most famous dog collar match ever against Rowdy Roddy Piper. The match begins, obviously both men have the dog collars on, separated by a length of chain. They fight over the chain at first, and Brody wins and yanks Cody into the apron where he collides with John Silver, and that allows Brody to take control. And the camera lingers on John Silver, and when he comes back up to the apron, he's already busted open. We've already got blood in this match from the first move. Brody heads to the outside, he grabs John Silver, sits him in a chair at ringside. I don't know if this is a ploy or whatever, the camera kind of misses the setup, but Cody flies in from off camera and just clatters into John Silver, who's sat on the chair. I don't know if Brody yanked him into John Silver as like a deliberate human sacrifice of his minion, or whether Cody ran and Brody just moved out the way. Not quite certain, but John Silver's now completely just gone. He's taken 2 big shots in the opening few minutes, and Brody's like, get him out of here, and Anna Jay helps him to the back. And now Brody basically is out there on his own. Cody is now already bleeding very early on as well, and then we get my favourite part of any chain match or dog collar match or any type of match that involves kind of a link between the 2 competitors. We get innovation and resourcefulness with the chain. So Cody is so innovative and resourceful because he uses the chain to swing it up into Brody Lee's, area and low blows him with the chain. But then Brody's resourceful as well because he throws Cody over the guardrail and uses the chain to smash him repeatedly into the barricade. And then Cody's even more resourceful because he stands on the floor on the ringside area, Brody's on the apron, and he yanks him off into an RKO out of nowhere from his legacy days. The next big spot of the match belongs to Cody. He hits a package pile driver on Brody Lee through a ringside table, and Brody comes up bleeding all over the place, of course, but he manages to kick out a 2 from a pile driver through a table. That is Matt Jackson levels of kicking out. Cody continues to be so resourceful, wrapping the chain around his fist, punching Brody in the face with it, using the chain to whip him over the back, and my personal favourite little crafty spot of the match. He throws the chain. I've seen Dustin Rhodes do this before in a bull rope match as well, in Impact I think it was. Cody throws the chain over the ring post with Brody in the corner. That means that because of physics and maths, when Cody moves backwards and pulls the chain, it means that Brody's getting yanked backwards into the ring post because the chain is now behind him. It's very, very good. I always like that spot since I saw Dustin do it when I was a wee lad watching TNA. Brody regains control of the match with a big boss man slam or black hole slam or whatever you want to call it, but Cody manages to kick out. Brody is not amused. He launches a steel chair at Arn Anderson, who stood on the ramp, and it just whistles past his head. Arn, is furious. He gets in the ring. Here comes Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order down into the ring to take Arn's lovely spine buster. It still looks good. Brody hits on Anderson, he goes down, and Cody is now furious and he's fired up and he hits the crossroads. 1, 2, Brody kicks out again. It is, as I mentioned, it is G1 season. Brody goes for the discus clothesline, but Cody avoids it and floats over beautifully. It's like the best float over I've ever seen. Cody then hits Goldust's final cut, the twisting vertical suplex. It looks awesome. He wraps the chain around Brody's face. He's digging him with elbows. He gets him up, hits the crossroads. 1, 2, 3, and Cody is once again the TNT champion. And we smash cut immediately to Greg Valentine going. I don't know if that's just because he's an old man and he doesn't look the most enthusiastic, but it was funny just to go from this huge dramatic moment to just Greg Valentine going, yeah, it was decent, mate, that was decent. Cody gets on the mic as the Dark Order get their leader out of the ring. He can't stand. Cody cuts a promo in which he basically says, Jack, you're rubbish for predicting that I was going to turn heel because I'm blatantly not. So thanks for that one, mate. Cheers. He doesn't say that, obviously, but he basically says, everybody thought that I was going to change my personality because I changed my hair color. Well, I'm not. I'm going to stick with you fans until the end. And I'm like, oh, well, I feel like a right fool now. Cody then says he wants to defend the belt next week. He wants to get straight back on it. And who should he defend it against? But here he comes, Orange Cassidy sauntering out to the ramp. He just sticks his thumb in the air. Cody returns the thumbs up gesture. And it looks like Cody's first title defense of his new reign is ready to go. For me, and I heard there was a lot of criticism online about Cody winning the belt back. For me, I don't mind. Because Brody was a strong champion. The reign furthered his character. It's made him seem better. It's crucial what he does in future, I'll admit. It's just crucial how Brody bounces back from this. But I don't think losing the title here is a bad call. I think that this match was excellent. It was overblown and silly at times, but that's exactly what you wanted from this sort of match. And both men did a really, really fantastic job. Cody may be the best babyface in wrestling right now, man. So I think, despite predicting he was going to turn heel, I'm quite pleased to see him maintain that babyface course, I suppose. I thought this was absolutely brilliant. It got enough time. It was very much the best thing on the show. I think I'm going to give it an A+ grade. It was very, very fun. and I really enjoyed it. Next up, we've got Excalibur telling us about more competitors in the 8-man tournament. Obviously, the winner of the tournament becomes the #1 contender to the AEW World Championship. So far, we already knew last week that Jungle Boy, Phoenix, and Kenny Omega were going to be in the tournament. Now we learn the next 3 competitors: Wardlow, Colt Cabana, and Hangman Page. Marvez is backstage with Kenny Omega to get his reaction. Omega just puts over how mint he is at tournaments. He's like, Alex, I'm so good at tournaments. This is going to be so easy. I'm very, very good at winning tournaments in wrestling. And Marvez says, yeah, well, you know, what do you think of the other competitors in there? Like, you know, Hangman Page? And Omega says, yeah, you know what's great that this tournament's just attracting attention from everybody, even tag team wrestlers like Hangman Page. Oh, shellers, what's going on? Kenny then reiterates that he doesn't care that Hangman's in the tournament a bunch of times, so we know that he definitely cares. Next up, we get a fairly short match, the only women's match of the night, unfortunately, between Big Swole and Serena Deeb. And from the opening, it's just very clear that Deeb is still so smooth, regardless of her opponent as well, because she was matched up really well with another technician in the form of Thunder Rosa when they had that very impressive match a few weeks ago. But when she's matched up with somebody like Big Swole, who's more of a striker, I guess, she's still smooth as ever. So I think that really speaks a lot to her level of skill. It's a match of 2 halves. Serena spends the first half of the match just outwitting Big Swole all over the mat, rolling her around easily. But Swole fights back. She's kind of playing the face role here, even though Deeb is also a face. She's the one trying to slow it down and grind her opponent down. Swole fights back with big strikes, as she does. And what gets her the win is kind of a triple strike combination, with Deeb bouncing off the ropes and rebounding back into her path 3 times. So first she hits a pump kick, Deeb rebounds into a headbutt, and then she does again into Dirty Dancing, and that's enough for the win. This gets a B grade. It was a short match. The women's division should probably get more time, generally speaking, on Dynamite. But as a match, it was totally fine. Serena Deeb looks excellent. Just give her the belt already. She's fantastic. And I agree with the result as well. I think pushing Swole is the right thing to do, even though secretly I want Serena Deeb to be the top woman in the division. But that, you know, I understand why Swole's more relevant as the younger and you know, fresher competitor. At the same time, the crowd were dead for this. Like, that's why it only gets a B grade, really. They were so burnt out after the dog collar match that the match ended in like near silence. Next up, the main event. Here we go. We've been waiting for it, and it's finally happening. It's Chris Jericho and Jake Hager versus Serpentico and Luther. Luther is main eventing AEW Dynamite. We've wanted it for so long, and now it's here. I don't know how to feel. While the entrances are being made, Excalibur hypes how long Jericho and Luther have known each other, saying they first wrestled each other in '91, and they've travelled all up and down the roads and everything. Then we get some more messages for Jericho's 30th anniversary from celebrities. So we've got Kevin Smith, Eli Roth, Gabriel Iglesias and Chavo Guerrero, Steel Panther, Ultimo Dragon, Paul Stanley from Kiss, and my favourite shout out of all, his old Thrill Seekers tag partner, Lance Storm. We're gonna rock America. Can they recreate that video, please? It's a bit of a standard back and forth tag team match, a bit of a house showy sort of tag team match, really, until Serpentico hits the ropes and Luther backdrops him, kind of boosts him over the top rope onto the inner circle below. There's a couple of extra members in there as well to help catch him, not just Hager and Jericho. Then Luther decides to head up top, and I'm like, oh my god, be careful. He's like wobbling and slipping on the turnbuckle, man. It was scary. He sentons off, the inner circle do catch him, and the match continues. At one point, Luther's on one side of the ring apron and realizes he needs to be around the other side, like around the ring post basically. He goes to step around the ring post and falls off the apron. He falls off the apron. Jericho goes for the Judas Effect back elbow. Luther ducks it and gets a near fall, and Luther is battering Chris Jericho here. Jericho's getting barely any offense in against Luther. Luther's destroying Chris Jericho. The referee gets distracted by something on the outside. Sammy Guevara goes to throw the baseball bat in to Jericho. Luther intercepts it. Very nice grab, to be fair, despite me thinking he had no coordination after falling off the apron. He did catch that spinning baseball bat with ease, and it looked cool, so fair play, Luther. He digs Jericho in the ribs with it. He hits the ropes and hits a medium boot, we'll call it. Throws the bat away, the ref turns around, but it's only a 2 count. And then not long after that, Jericho catches Luther with the Judas Effect, 1, 2, 3, and Chris Jericho wins, and Jake Hager as well. I forgot this wasn't just a singles match. So dominant was Luther throughout the whole thing. But Jericho and Hager win. I'm giving it a C grade. It was a very C match. If you watch it, you'll know what I mean. But the show is not over yet. Jericho in the inner circle get in the ring. Jericho gets on the mic. He's about to thank the fans for 30 years in wrestling. It seems like we're about to have a rare, gracious moment from Chris Jericho. And then MJF's music hits and he interrupts. MJF saunters down to the ring. He's got Wardlow behind him. Wardlow has somebody under like a sheet. We can't see who it is. I'm expecting Sting to be under there and just start laying fools out. Spoilers, it doesn't turn out to be Sting. MJF, Wardlow, and this mystery person get in the ring. MJF congratulates Jericho and says, look, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I had to come and join in the celebration. And look, I've got you a gift. Wardlow, unveil the gift. Wardlow pulls the sheet off. It's a clown, you know, it's not a wrestler as far as I can tell, disguised as one. It's just a clown by the looks of it. And MJF goes, look, it's Clownico Le Clown. Oh dear. The reason I say oh dear is because I'm getting serious Festival of Friendship vibes here when, of course, Kevin Owens turned on Jericho and beat him brutally. But now Jericho's he's kind of on the other side of it, isn't he? He's the one receiving the gifts and looking very, very angry about the whole thing. He says, right, okay. He doesn't look impressed. MJF goes, don't worry, Clownico's holding another gift. And Jericho unwraps it. It's a framed photograph of MJF himself. It's very much like when The Rock gifted the Nation of Domination his own portrait. Jericho fakes a laugh and just brutally smashes this portrait or this blown up photograph over Clownico's head, drops the clown with a brutal Judas Effect back elbow and says, I hate clowns. Don't ever interrupt me again. And I'm like, oh my God, MJF and Jericho, it's gonna happen now. It's not gonna be slow burn. It's gonna happen now. And then Jericho goes, just kidding, just teasing you. And MJF's like, oh, Chris, what are you like? And I'm like, oh, it is slow burn in the end. And then we get like the ending of a sitcom because all the heels from the locker room come out and they all celebrate with Jericho in the ring. And it's so weird seeing all these varied, diverse, despicable, it's like a carnival of horrors coming out to the ring, all to just be happy and have a toast with Jericho. And the credits roll and all the roles are filled by Jericho. It's like directed by Jericho, produced by Jericho, ringside camera, Chris Jericho. It's very funny. It's got Jericho's fingerprints all over it. It is blatantly a Chris Jericho idea. This gets a B+ to end the show. It's very intriguing. I've seen theories online, and I won't spoil it if you didn't spot it, but I've seen theories online that MJF has a bit of an inside man in the inner circle and somebody who could potentially turn on Jericho, but I won't say who in case you haven't seen it. So overall then, this show gets a B+ grade from me. It would have been a bit of a weak show, I think, if it wasn't for that excellent Cody versus Brody Lee match. But it wouldn't have been a weak show in terms of long-term goals, if that makes sense. So it may have been standalone a bit of a weak show, but you know, it's all building to something, and I really enjoy when storylines develop slowly, and AEW is so good at that, even if it does mean occasionally they have to sacrifice a week in terms of quality for that week only. However, it wasn't even a bad week because we did have that Cody Brody Lee match, so B+ I think is a fair reflection on it. Definitely check out the dog collar match because it was wonderful, and probably that main event too if you want to have a wee bit of a laugh. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Jack from Cultaholic.com. Leave your thoughts and opinions on this episode of Dynamite in the comment section down below. Stay safe out there, stay positive, and I'll see you very soon.